Okay, let's unpack this. We've all heard the phrase good vibes only, haven't we? It's tossed around on social media, on t-shirts, in casual conversation. But what if there was something, I don't know, deeper to it? What if cultivating good vibes wasn't just a catchy saying, but maybe a fundamental way to approach life and, well, unlock your potential?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. It's a real pleasure to be here, and especially a pleasure to dive into the material you shared with us for this deep dive. Our source today is the book Good Vibes, Good Life: How to Manifest Your Desires and Live a Happier Life by Vex King.
That's right. And our mission, as always, is to take this stack of material, the excerpts you've provided from this book, which was published by Hay House, that gives you a sense of its focus on personal development, spirituality, and really extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight.
hmm
We're not here to say, this is the absolute truth for everyone, but more to understand the author's perspective, explore the core ideas he presents, and maybe see why they resonate with so many people seeking change and, well, fulfillment in their lives. So think of this as getting the essence of the book's philosophy. The surprising facts, the interesting concepts, those aha moments, all in a conversation tailored just for you. We're going to journey through Vex King's personal take on everything from overcoming hardship to the practicalities of self-love,
hmm
the intriguing concept of vibration, how to manifest your goals, navigating relationships, and finding your purpose. It covers a lot of ground.
It really does. And just to provide that context, the book itself is deeply personal. It's dedicated to his mom, dad, and anyone with a dream, which makes a lot more sense when you hear some of the vulnerable childhood stories he includes. It also carries that standard disclaimer, that the information isn't a substitute for professional advice. So it positions it firmly as personal philosophy and guidance, which is, I think, how we should approach our discussion today.
Okay, let's jump right in then, because the author starts with something incredibly raw and, well, challenging as childhood. He doesn't shy away from sharing genuinely difficult memories, talking about living in a shelter, seeing things no child should really witness.
It's powerful right from the start. He describes pretty graphic details like blood on the staircases and walls, the terrifying sound of screams and shouting, and that unsettling sight of, fragments of glass on the floor. He talks about looking up at his mom during these moments, sensing her fear, even though she was trying so hard to be strong for him.
And that feeling of isolation, too, that
Yeah.
feeling that nobody cared. He remembers hearing the screams just continuing and being surprised that no police ever showed up, feeling like nobody was trying to calm the storm or, help them. It left this profound impression, didn't it? A feeling that in a world that seemed cold and, well, corrupt, nobody cared about them, about their safety.
Yeah, and what's particularly striking about how he reflects on these events is how he notes that while the specific visual details might blur over time, the emotions attached to those experiences remain incredibly vivid. And in his words, they haunted him for a very long time. The fear, the helplessness, that feeling of being unheard and unsafe, those emotional resonances were really deeply ingrained.
Absolutely. And he's very open about how, during his late teens, the weight of these memories became almost unbearable. He desperately wished they would just disappear, wanted to erase the past because it was this constant reminder of the struggles, the trauma, that feeling of being less than. He felt embarrassed, deeply uncomfortable with who he was because of where he came from. And he admits there were times he just wanted to, well, hurt the world back because he felt so hurt by it. That level of vulnerability up front is incredibly relatable, I think, for anyone carrying a difficult past.
It truly sets the foundation for his whole journey. And the contrast he then presents is really key. His current perspective, where he looks back and actually embraces everything that happened. He says he now sees a lesson in every single event, no matter how painful it was at the time. This transformation, going from wanting to erase the past entirely to actively embracing it and finding meaning in it, is presented as a core element of his philosophy. It suggests that difficult experiences, even really traumatic ones, can be reframed and used as catalysts for huge growth and self-discovery.
Which naturally brings him to his initial encounters with popular self-help concepts, particularly the law of attraction. He talks about being introduced to ideas like those in The Secret, with the core premise being what you think about, you bring about.
Yes, the initial focus was very much on the power of just positive thinking. The idea was to consciously commit your thoughts to what you want to happen in your life rather than, dwelling on your fears or worries.
And he shares that very compelling anecdote about needing 500 pounds for a holiday with his friends. He decided to put the law of attraction to the test. He focused his thoughts on the 500 pounds, visualized having it, and then out of the blue, received a letter from the tax office.
Right. He filled out the form, thinking maybe he'd get a small rebate, something small. But a week later, he gets a check not for the 500 pounds he was focusing on, but for 800 pounds.
An extra 300 pounds he wasn't even expecting. He deposited it, it cleared faster than usual, and he went on the holiday as planned. That experience, getting that specific amount and more through a totally unexpected source, really solidified his initial belief in the law of attraction. It felt, as he puts it, pretty miraculous.
However, that's not quite where his journey with these concepts ended. He quickly discovered that relying solely on the law of attraction, on just trying to think positively all the time, felt inconsistent. It was, in his words, kind of hit and miss. The major challenge he ran into was just how incredibly difficult it is to maintain that state of relentless positivity, especially when things go genuinely undeniably wrong in your life.
Absolutely. And he illustrates this perfectly with a significant setback during his final year at university. A crucial group project went completely, well, off the rails. The group became heavily divided. There were intense arguments, harsh words exchanged. He and his friend felt they were being treated unfairly, and the situation just deteriorated to the point where they were convinced they would fail the project and consequently not graduate. It was a huge deal.
And this was a situation where just trying to think happy thoughts felt completely useless, right? He was consumed by negative thoughts, anger, frustration, fear of failure. He felt like his entire time at university had just been wasted. He even reached such a low point that he found himself revisiting his worst childhood memories, feeling like his life was fundamentally worthless. He seriously considered quitting university entirely at that point.
That anecdote about him lashing out and blaming his mom in anger and her incredibly loving and supportive response trying to convince him to stay is really poignant, isn't it? It highlights how deeply the setback affected him and how trying to just maintain a positive facade was impossible when he was filled with such profound anger and frustration.
Precisely. That university experience became a critical turning point for him. It starkly revealed the limitation of focusing only on positive thinking. It showed him that mindset, in isolation, wasn't the complete solution, especially when powerful, deep-seated emotions like anger and frustration were present. This difficult period really propelled him to seek a deeper understanding, something that addressed not just thoughts, but the underlying feeling state.
And this is where he says he discovered the key component to a greater life.
Yes. Something he suggests exists beyond just the law of attraction. He calls it the law of vibration. He introduces this concept by referencing basic scientific principles. Everything in the universe is made up of atoms, right?
Right.
And every atom is in constant motion, vibrating at a specific frequency. Therefore, all matter and energy, including us humans, are vibrational in nature.
He uses analogies from the source material to help explain this idea, like how solids, liquids, and gases have different molecular vibration frequencies, which is why they exist in different states. Makes
Right.
sense.
Or the analogy of sound waves. Our human ear can only perceive sound waves within a specific range, typically between 20 and 20,000 vibrations per second. Frequencies outside this range exist like a dog whistle, which has a really high frequency, but we can't perceive them because we're not vibrationally attuned to them. Our ears aren't set up to match that frequency.
What's fascinating about extending this idea is his suggestion that this concept of matching vibrations applies to our perception of reality itself. Is that right?
Exactly. The idea presented is that we perceive and experience reality through matching vibrations. We attract things, people, experiences into our lives that are vibrationally compatible with our own state.
Okay, so if everything is vibration, including us, and we attract things based on our vibration, how do we as individuals know what our vibration is? How do we measure it, so to speak?
According to the book, the most direct and honest indicator of your vibrational state is your emotions. Your emotions are presented as a true, unfiltered reflection of your energy and where you are vibrating. He makes it really clear that you can't just pretend to be in a high vibrational state if your underlying emotion is low. Your true feeling state will reveal your actual vibration.
And the practical application of this understanding, what's the takeaway?
Well, the core concept derived from this is that if we feel good, we'll think good thoughts, and as a result, we'll take positive actions. The journey he advocates is one of actively seeking and cultivating good vibrations, consistently experiencing positive emotional states. This fundamentally shifts the focus from simply trying to think positively, which, as we discussed, he found challenging and inconsistent, to cultivating positive feelings, which then naturally lead to positive thoughts and inspired actions. It's about the feeling first.
He even notes that the concept of vibration, or vibe, isn't entirely new, referencing Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich, who wrote something like, "We are what we are because of the vibrations of thought which we pick up and register."
Right. While the specific framing as a law of vibration and its, let's say, scientific basis in terms of atoms and frequencies might seem unconventional or outside mainstream physics for some,
Yeah, maybe a bit out there for some listeners.
possibly. But the author's perspective is that he found it deeply resonant and observed what he considered miraculous changes in his own life by applying this understanding. And crucially, he argues that regardless of whether you accept the law of vibration as, like, a scientific principle, the practical application of trying to raise your vibration, which really just translates to actively trying to feel good more often, does no harm and can lead to significant positive changes in your life simply by improving your emotional state and the actions that naturally flow from it.
That's a really compelling point. It raises an important question for you, the listener. Regardless of the mechanism, if consciously engaging in activities that improve how you feel leads to a more positive life experience, isn't that a valuable approach in itself?
Exactly. Why not try it, right?
So, if the practical goal is to vibrate higher, to feel good more often, how does the book suggest we actually achieve this? What are the practical habits and activities recommended?
The book offers a really extensive list of practices aimed at raising your personal vibration. He differentiates between things that might offer temporary relief from negative emotions, like, say, going out for a fun night with friends after a stressful situation.
Right, that might make you feel better for a bit.
Yeah, it changes your state in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily address the underlying issue, so the misery might return. He contrasts this with consistent habits that can cultivate a higher vibration more permanently.
Okay, so what are some of those specific, suggested high vibration activities from the source?
Well, the list is pretty varied. It includes things like engaging in physical touch with a loved one, laughing, genuinely laughing, listening to uplifting music, intentionally spreading kindness to others, prioritizing deep and restful sleep, moving your body through exercise or dance, spending quality time alone to recharge.
Alone time is important too.
Absolutely. Spending time in nature is another big one, and actively seeking out sources of inspiration. He also discusses the power of body language. He actually cites a study from 2003 which suggested that even the simple act of faking a smile can trigger your brain to release endorphins, those feel-good chemicals.
Really, just faking it.
That's what the study suggested, yeah. It highlights this idea of a physical feedback loop.
Yeah.
Your posture and expression aren't just symptoms of your emotional state, they can actively influence it. Think about how someone who is feeling low often has that slumped posture, a grim expression.
Yeah, head down, shoulders slumped.
Exactly. Compared to someone feeling happy and open posture, upright, expressive face. So consciously changing your physical state can actually start to shift your emotional one.
That connection between the physical and the emotional is fascinating. He also puts a lot of emphasis on the importance of taking time out, doesn't he?
Yes, recognizing the simple but vital need to relax and create distance from stress. He uses this great Mexican-Spanish word, engentado, to describe that feeling of being completely peopled out after spending a lot of time with others, and just needing solitude to replenish your energy. The book really normalizes this need for alone time, saying it's not selfish or cruel, it's actually a necessary practice for your own well-being. And it prevents you from unintentionally draining your energy or, lowering others' vibrations when you're depleted.
And spending time in nature is presented as another powerful way to recharge.
Exactly. Being in nature is described as helping to replenish and rejuvenate your entire system. He mentions a study from 1991 suggesting the recuperative effects of natural environments on psychological well-being. And this practice doesn't require anything elaborate, just walking outside, maybe doing some gardening, sitting under a tree, looking at the stars, or even just getting some sun exposure for vitamin D and serotonin boosts. It's essentially about unplugging from the external world to reset your internal state.
Finding inspiration is also listed as a key practice.
Yeah, inspiration is what he says keeps him driven and optimistic. He shares his personal sources, which range from self-help books like his own, empowering novels like The Alchemist, digital content such as podcasts like this one perhaps, online videos, articles.
Movies too.
Yeah, movies like The Pursuit of Happiness, and simply having conversations with inspiring friends. These inputs help shift your mindset and lift your vibration when you're feeling stuck or maybe a bit discouraged. And then there's a really unique and interesting section on diet and its potential vibrational impact. He references some, well, less conventional research, specifically André Simonton's work from 1949 on the electromagnetic waves of food measured in angstroms.
Angstroms in food. Okay, that's certainly a surprising detail from the source material. It sounds very technical.
It does, but the concept as presented in the book is actually quite straightforward. Simonton, through his research, apparently categorized foods based on their observed vibrational energy. He created four categories, from high vibration foods that registered the most angstroms down to those with practically no angstroms.
So what kind of foods fall into those categories?
Well, the high vibration category includes things like fresh fruits, raw vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Then, lower vibration foods include boiled vegetables, milk, eggs, and cooked fish. Very low vibration foods are things like cooked meat, coffee, tea, chocolate, and processed cheese. And finally, foods with practically no vibrational energy, according to this research, include margarine, spirits like hard alcohol, white sugar, and bleached flour.
So the implication is that consuming fresh, raw, and organic foods supports a higher personal vibration, while things like processed food, cooked meat, and alcohol tend to lower it.
That's precisely the insight drawn from this research in the book. He specifically notes that organic produce tends to have a higher vibration, alcohol lowers your vibration significantly, and staying hydrated with fresh filtered water is crucial. It offers a very different lens through which to view our dietary choices, doesn't it? Beyond just macros and calories, focusing on energy and vibration.
Fascinating. And finally, he highlights what he considers one of the most crucial and accessible habits: gratitude.
He calls gratitude one of the simplest and yet most powerful habits anyone can adopt. The fundamental principle is beautifully simple. You can't feel bad while you're feeling thankful. He acknowledges that it's often challenging because our brains are kind of wired to focus on potential threats and burdens, or to compare ourselves negatively to what others have, rather than appreciating our own gifts and blessings.
He even includes the quote, "Greatness starts with being grateful." That really links it to success.
Yes, linking thankfulness directly to personal fulfillment and happiness. Gratitude helps immensely in putting life into perspective. He contrasts the common habit of comparing yourself to those who seem more fortunate with the more humbling and perspective-building exercise of comparing your situation to the less fortunate. He uses the powerful example of reflecting on people enduring war on a daily basis while you are safe from such immediate dangers. It really shifts your focus. And to make gratitude more than just a superficial thank you, he offers a method to cultivate genuine feeling. He gives the example of his coaching client, Will, who struggled to feel thankful for things he took for granted, like his car. The technique is to actively imagine life without the thing you are grateful for. Imagine losing your car, your home, your health, or a loved one. By contemplating the absence of something you have, you can produce strong, genuine feelings of appreciation for its presence. As he puts it, the more you count your blessings, the more blessings you'll have to count.
He also shares a personal story where he applied this himself with a difficult manager at work. His initial reaction was completely natural resentment, complaining, focusing on the problem. Sound familiar?
Right. Totally relatable. He realized he was directing all his energy and emotion towards the negative situation. He then made a conscious decision to shift his focus. Instead of dwelling on how difficult the manager was, he chose to feel grateful for simply having the job, particularly for the high salary it provided, which allowed him to enjoy comforts in his life. By consciously shifting into that state of appreciation, which he views as a high vibrational state, he noticed things started to change externally. Within months, the difficult manager was promoted and moved to a different team, and the author himself received a pay rise and more freedom in his role.
So by intentionally focusing his energy on gratitude for what was positive in the situation, a good salary, rather than feeding the negativity around the manager, the external circumstances actually shifted positively. It's about directing energy towards solutions or appreciation, not problems and resentment.
That's the key takeaway from that anecdote. It's not about ignoring difficult realities, definitely not. But it's about choosing where you place your emotional and mental energy to influence your own state and potentially the external outcomes.
Okay, shifting our focus now, the book stresses that cultivating good vibes isn't just about external actions or reacting to circumstances. It's deeply rooted in understanding and working with our inner world, particularly our emotions and how we relate to ourselves through self-love.
Yeah, he makes a very strong point about the importance of studying emotions rather than suppressing them. He compares ignoring negative emotions to keeping poison in your system, becomes toxic over time. The goal isn't to force yourself to feel positive all the time, that's not realistic, but it's to acknowledge, understand, and ultimately transform negative emotions into something healthier and more constructive, which in turn raises your vibration. He warns that repressed feelings don't just disappear, they linger, becoming toxic, damaging your mental and physical health, and can even make you toxic in your interactions with others.
He seems to lay out an implied process for dealing with emotions. First, you acknowledge the emotion, don't push it away or pretend it's not there. Second, understand its deeper meaning. What is this emotion really trying to tell you? And third, transform it, work through it to reach a higher vibrational state. Does that sound right?
That sums it up well. He gives the example of Sarah, who felt intense insecurity when a love interest didn't text back quickly. By digging into that emotion, she realized it wasn't really about the text. It stemmed from a deeper need for social acceptance and approval, rooted in low self-worth. Recognizing that underlying issue allows her to address the root cause, fostering growth and transformation, rather than just trying to feel better superficially in the moment.
This naturally leads into the concept of self-love, which he suggests is often misunderstood. It's not, he's very clear, an excuse for complacency or, remaining unchallenged in negative habits.
Exactly. He defines self-love not as a single state, but as a crucial balance between two distinct but complementary elements. The first is acceptance. This element focuses on your mindset, cultivating unconditional love and acceptance toward yourself. It's about appreciating and valuing who and where you are right now, regardless of any physical or personal transformations you might desire, like losing weight or getting cosmetic surgery. True self-love, in this sense, is presented as accepting yourself as you are.
Okay, so accepting yourself fully is one part. What's the second element then?
The second element is growth. This part focuses on action, the continuous process of improving yourself and your life. This drive for growth doesn't come from a place of believing you're not good enough now, but from recognizing that you deserve better than settling for mediocrity or staying stuck in unfulfilling situations. He uses an analogy to explain this balance. Think about how you might love a partner unconditionally. You accept them completely, including their quirks or annoying habits. But if they had a habit that was detrimental to their health, you would still lovingly support them in making positive changes, not for your sake, but for their well-being, right?
Right. Out of love for them.
Self-love in this model is applying that same principle to yourself, accepting who you are, while simultaneously having your own best interests at heart and taking action to improve your life and well-being.
So it's presented as both embracing your current self and actively striving to be your best self. A dynamic thing, not static.
Exactly. It's presented as a practice of empowerment and liberation. And a key promise is that when you truly love and accept yourself, life often begins to love you back, opening up opportunities and attracting positive experiences. He also highlights how a lack of self-love can be incredibly damaging, particularly in relationships. He gives the example of Kira, whose deep insecurity about her appearance led her to constantly doubt and distrust her partner, Troy. This manifested in behaviors like checking his phone, which obviously damaged his self-esteem and ultimately led to the end of their relationship. Wow. The insight here is that when you genuinely accept yourself, you become content with the reality that not everyone will accept you. Your worth isn't tied to external validation. You know your value intrinsically. Conversely, people who struggle with self-acceptance often project their insecurity, constantly looking for flaws in others or seeking external approval to feel worthy.
Which is such a constant battle given the world we live in, especially with the pressure to compare ourselves to others all the time.
Comparison is identified as a major source of unhappiness and a powerful joy stealer. He talks about the relentless external pressures from media and especially social media, constantly bombarding us with heavily edited images and often unrealistic ideals of beauty and success. This constant exposure magnifies our existing insecurities and creates a subconscious, often unattainable definition of what is considered beautiful or successful. He pointedly notes that many businesses profit directly from our insecurities, which is a sobering thought.
And social media adds another layer, doesn't it?
Huh.
With the pursuit of likes, comments, external validation, providing those little hits of dopamine that can become quite addictive.
Yeah, he suggests that people who are constantly seeking validation online might be trying to fill a void that stems from a lack of self-love.
He shares his own relatable childhood anecdote about feeling embarrassed by his family's modest house and clothes compared to his friends.
Uh-huh.
And a specific memory at a wedding, where another boy openly mocked others' clothing, reinforcing his fear of being judged based on perceived lack of wealth or status. Those things stick with you.
They really do. And he also touches on how well-meaning parental influence, through comparisons like, why can't you get straight A's, like Sayora, can be incredibly damaging, instilling a feeling in a child that they are fundamentally not good enough compared to others. The powerful solution he offers to counter this is simple in concept, but requires a significant shift in perspective. Your competition is you. He stresses the importance of focusing only on outdoing the person you were yesterday. Keep your attention and energy squarely focused on your own life, your own goals, and your own progress, not anyone else's. Easy to say, harder to do, maybe.
Definitely harder to do. But beyond physical appearance and external comparisons, he puts a strong emphasis on the importance of inner beauty.
He observes that qualities like unconditional love, kindness, compassion, strong character, which he defines as inner beauty, are rarely praised or acknowledged as beautiful in the same way physical attributes are. This societal focus on the external often leads people to prioritize changing their physical appearance through dieting, exercise, or even surgery, far more than they prioritize cultivating their internal world, their thoughts, beliefs, and actions.
That's a really interesting point.
He argues that while physical beauty might satisfy physical needs or initial attraction, it is real substance, a beautiful heart, mind, and spirit that truly satisfies the hearts, minds, and souls of others and leads to deep, lasting connection. He uses the analogy of a luxury sports car being useless without an engine. Similarly, someone who is only physically beautiful lacks the inner substance needed to move forward meaningfully in life or build deep relationships. The key takeaway: your physical body will inevitably change and age, but your internal beauty can grow and last a lifetime. Invest in building your character, because while you can buy surgery, you can't buy a new personality or a good heart. Looks may initially attract, but inner substance is what keeps genuinely great people in your life.
And this connects directly to the importance of respecting your uniqueness and not feeling pressure to simply follow the crowd.
He makes a really astute point about how as children we're constantly told to be yourself and pursue our unique dreams, but as we get older, that message often comes with unspoken caveats: be yourself, but not like that.
Totally. Be yourself, but fit in this box.
Exactly. He discusses the concept of social proof, that psychological tendency to follow the crowd or do what others are doing, like choosing a packed restaurant over an empty one, assuming the crowd knows best. But he strongly emphasizes that just because everyone is doing something doesn't make it right, citing historical examples like the widespread acceptance of slavery as a stark illustration. The core message here is to constantly question why you're making the choices you are. Are you following the crowd out of fear, convenience, or a need for acceptance? Or are you listening to your soul, your inner guidance? Following others, he argues, means relinquishing control over your own life and thoughts, leading to anxiety and becoming, in his words, a slave to other people's opinions.
That's a powerful phrase.
It is. He suggests that society often uses fear and a sense of scarcity to control behavior and steer people down conventional paths, and that even well-meaning guidance from loved ones can be based on limitations and fears passed down through generations. He offers a powerful choice. You can listen to the crowd, or you can listen to your soul and be on your own stage.
Easier said than done sometimes, though. The pressure is real.
Absolutely. He acknowledges the reality that you are going to be judged either way, whether you conform or follow your own path. True authenticity, he suggests, is rare, partly because modern marketing and societal pressures often prime us to think and act in predictable ways. He urges the listener not to let their individuality be stripped away just to fit in to an imaginary box created by others. He encourages embracing being called weird or different precisely because you don't conform to arbitrary societal norms. True freedom, he argues, has no constraints.
And to really drive that point home about how quickly society can label uniqueness, he includes a whole list of specific examples, doesn't he?
Yes, it's quite revealing. He lists labels commonly applied to people who are simply being themselves but don't fit the mold. Things like being called quiet when you just enjoy silence, weak for avoiding conflict, obsessed for being passionate about something, rude for not engaging in small talk,
Arrogant for having healthy self-respect.
boring for not being extroverted, having wrong beliefs for spiritual or unconventional views, shy, weird for not conforming, fake for being genuinely positive, a loner for needing alone time, lost for not following the conventional career path, or a geek for actively seeking knowledge.
Wow, that list really covers a lot.
It does. And these specific labels really highlight how easily individuality can be pathologized or dismissed by others who maybe prefer conformity.
Okay, so with this understanding of our inner world, our emotions, self-love, embracing our uniqueness, the book then shifts focus to how we can apply these principles to achieving our goals and manifesting our desires, starting with the necessary mind work.
Right, reaffirming that core principle established earlier, he emphasizes. Your mentality is your reality. The dominant thoughts and beliefs you hold significantly influence your emotions, your vibration, and consequently, the reality you experience. The aim here isn't to forcefully eliminate negative thoughts, it's often impossible and counterproductive, but it's to acknowledge them and transform them into something healthier and more empowering, which raises your vibration and changes what you attract. He reiterates that repressed or unaddressed feelings will inevitably resurface and lower your vibration. Introspection and self-awareness are presented as fundamental tools for this process.
He highlights changing your perception as a powerful, practical technique. The idea that if you can't change a situation, change your perception of it.
Exactly. Events in themselves are neutral. It is our interpretation, the label we apply, good, bad, opportunity, disaster, that gives them meaning and impacts our emotional response. The practice of observing your thoughts, perhaps through meditation or journaling, helps you gain control. It allows you to choose a more empowering response rather than being automatically controlled by habitual negative thinking patterns.
He uses the very clear example of losing a job. One perception is, I'm unemployed, I'm broke, this is a disaster, which leads to a state of hopelessness and, a low vibration.
Right. Versus another perception, which might be, okay, this is a setback, but maybe it's an opportunity to find a better job, something I'm more passionate about. That fosters a sense of possibility and maintains a higher vibration. The chosen thought directly impacts your state and potential outcome.
So it's framed as a choice. Either you are controlled by your automatic, often negative thought patterns that stem from past conditioning and fear, or you choose to be in control by consciously selecting and cultivating empowering thoughts.
Precisely. And he makes a very bold and optimistic statement related to
Oh,
this.
yeah. What's that?
You're only ever one positive thought away from a more desirable outcome.
One thought. That sounds almost too simple.
Well, he connects this idea, perhaps loosely, to concepts like chaos theory or the butterfly effect, how tiny shifts in initial parameters or states can have disproportionately large effects down the line. Applied here, a single conscious decision to choose a positive or empowering thought, a small shift in perspective, is presented as having the potential to significantly alter your emotional state, raise your vibration, and ultimately change the trajectory towards a more desirable outcome. It's about that initial pivot.
Okay, that makes more sense. And this leads directly to the concept of changing beliefs.
Yes. He explains that beliefs act like a powerful lens through which we view and interpret life. We tend to see and experience what we have convinced ourselves is true. He uses his own childhood experience of hardship as an example. Growing up in a difficult environment led him to accept the belief that life is inherently difficult, because that was the reality for those around him based on their experiences.
And he realized these ingrained beliefs, even if based on real past experiences, can become incredibly limiting, right? Preventing people from even daring to pursue their dreams because they subconsciously believe life is just too hard for that to happen.
Exactly. Escaping these mental limitations created by old or unhelpful beliefs is presented as crucial for growth and manifestation. He shares that by studying successful people and spiritual leaders, he observed a common thread: the deep understanding that beliefs create the life we experience. He came to understand that his parents' or community's beliefs about life's difficulty were true for them based on their specific experiences and social conditioning, but they were not universal truths applicable to everyone.
So the actionable insight is, to change your life, you must be willing to examine and change your limiting beliefs.
Right. This involves actively seeking out evidence and examples of people who have overcome similar circumstances or achieved what you desire, showing you that alternative realities and possibilities exist beyond your current belief system. It's about expanding your sense of what's possible.
So how does he suggest we actively work on changing these thoughts and beliefs?
Hmm.
He offers several practical techniques for this mind work, doesn't he?
He does. Repeating affirmations is one key technique. These are positive statements about what you want to experience or become, which you repeat regularly. He stresses they should be in the present tense, I am, positively framed, specific, and importantly, connected to a genuine emotional feeling. The idea is that consistent repetition, coupled with emotion, helps to influence and reprogram your subconscious mind.
Okay, affirmations. What else?
He also highlights the power of words themselves, believing they carry their own vibration and energy. So, consciously choosing to use empowering, positive words, both in your internal self-talk and your external communication, is seen as vital for maintaining a high vibration. Setting the intention is another crucial step. You must be crystal clear not just about what you want, but also why it matters, connecting your goal to a greater meaning or purpose beyond just superficial gain. Once your intention is clear, focused, and emotionally charged, he suggests the universe begins to work in miraculous ways, with synchronicities and opportunities starting to unfold in your favor.
He provides that really compelling example with the rapper J. Cole. Early in his career, Cole made a T-shirt that declared his intention. Produce for Jay-Z or die trying.
Yeah, that's a great story. It wasn't just a random thought. It was a clear, specific, emotionally charged intention. And years later, it manifested into him being signed to Jay-Z's label Rock Nation and working directly with Jay-Z as a producer and artist. It perfectly illustrates the power of a clear, unwavering intention.
Definitely. What other techniques?
Another technique is to write down your goals. He addresses the listener directly as the author of your future. The advice is to write your goals down in the present tense. I am a successful entrepreneur. I am financially free. Ensure they are positively phrased, written in your own voice, and include specific details to make them feel more real. He notes that while adding a time frame can provide motivation, it can also be counterproductive if the goal isn't met by that exact date, potentially leading to doubt and lowered vibration. So maybe be careful with strict deadlines. He suggests starting with smaller, confidence-building goals that feel achievable and reviewing and adjusting your goals as needed along the way.
Makes sense. And finally, visualization. That's a big one in this kind of work.
Yes, perhaps one of the most emphasized techniques for mind work is imagine it to live it the practice of visualization, the core idea. What becomes real in your mind will become real in your life. He stresses that visualization isn't just passively seeing pictures, it's about actively creating detailed, multisensory scenes in your mind, engaging all your senses, taste, sight, touch, smell, hearing. Make these scenes as vibrant, exciting, and emotionally rich as possible.
This taps into that powerful neurological principle that the brain and nervous system cannot tell the difference between what is imagined and what is real. Is that the idea?
Exactly. By repeatedly and vividly imagining yourself embodying your desired state or achieving your goal, you are, in a sense, tricking your brain into believing it's already happened or is happening. This can shift your internal state, build confidence, and align your vibration with your desired outcome. The aim is to create visualizations that make you feel good, perhaps even giving you that tingly feeling he mentions, a sense of excited anticipation that it's coming.
What about tools, vision boards?
Yeah, he suggests using tools like vision boards, whether physical collages or digital ones like Pinterest. He actually mentions using Pinterest to visualize and eventually manifest his dream marriage proposal.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he even shares a personal anecdote of manifesting working with the music group. So Solid Crew as a teenager, simply by having their logo on his pencil case and spending time daydreaming about collaborating with them. The key is feeding your subconscious mind these powerful, detailed, emotional images of your desired future.
So this mind work, affirmations, visualization, setting intention, changing beliefs, is presented as absolutely crucial. But the book is equally clear. Manifestation isn't magic or passive wishful thinking. It fundamentally requires action. He states it plainly. It's not about where you're at. It's about what you're doing about where you're at.
Precisely. He emphasizes that change requires action. Intention, visualization, and high vibration are powerful, yes, but without taking practical steps, they are, in his words, just a wish. He describes the universe sending opportunities or impulses to act, which he calls nudges, but you are responsible for acting on those nudges. He revisits his own watch anecdote. He won the watch when he needed money. That was the universe's nudge, maybe, but he initially missed it because he was passively expecting money to just appear. It was only when he took the action of selling the watch that he manifested the needed funds.
Right, the action closed the loop.
Exactly. The core idea is that you can cultivate all the positive energy you want through thoughts, words, and emotions. But if you take no physical action in the real world, nothing substantial is going to change.
But taking action, especially towards big, daunting goals, can feel incredibly hard or overwhelming. People get stuck there.
That's where he addresses the easy route versus difficulty. He observes that many people know what actions they need to take to achieve their goals, like consistent diet and exercise for weight loss, but instead spend their energy looking for an easier solution or some magic pill rather than committing to the necessary effort. They'd rather seek shortcuts than embrace the process of doing the difficult work.
The path of least resistance.
Right. He argues that some things in life simply have to be done the difficult way. Achieving significant goals often requires effort, dedication, persistence, and stepping outside your comfort zone. He suggests reasons for inaction often stem from a fundamental lack of belief in one's ability to achieve results. They're sort of defeated by the idea of the difficulty or perceiving the required process as too painful or challenging to endure. He uses the inspiring example of Sir Richard Branson, diagnosed with dyslexia, dropped out of school at 16 to start a magazine, and later knew absolutely nothing about planes but started Virgin Atlantic anyway. Branson wasn't ready in the conventional sense. He was driven. He didn't succeed through sheer luck. He believed in his vision and took bold, consistent action despite the difficulties.
And consistency in that action is obviously non-negotiable, right?
Yeah.
Can't just do it once.
Consistency leads to results. He states it plainly. If you only commit to doing part of the plan, say 50% effort, you'll only get partial results, 50% results. If you give up too soon, perhaps after only 2 or 3 weeks when you don't see dramatic changes, you won't experience the final results that require sustained effort over time. He shares his own experience with a 2-month home workout series. He saw no exciting results after 1 month, but experienced significant physical changes after 2 months of consistently sticking with it.
That's a great example.
Yeah, and this applies to any positive practice. Consistent meditation, consistent affirmations, consistent visualization, consistent work on your goals. Solid, consistent practice is needed to see the benefits compound.
Oh.
He also adds a practical note. If you are being consistent but still not seeing progress, it might be a sign to review your methods, adapt your approach, and trust your intuition to guide you towards a different way.
He draws a distinction between what he calls ordinary and extraordinary people when it comes to taking action. What's the difference according to him?
Yes, his definition is quite telling. Extraordinary people will get things done even when they don't feel like it, because they're fully committed to their goals. While passion can certainly provide motivation, motivation itself is often fleeting. It comes and goes. He suggests that if you're experiencing low motivation, you might genuinely need rest or inspiration, sure. But if that's not the case, the key is sheer grit to proceed anyway. Do the task even if you're groaning internally by focusing on the desired result or the feeling you have once it's done. This commitment to action, even without feeling motivated, is what he says differentiates those who live a greater life than the average person.
And perhaps the biggest, most common blocker to taking consistent action. We all know this one.
Procrastination, yeah. He describes it as a habit, often born from tasks feeling overwhelming or simply preferring the immediate gratification of distraction. He starkly calls it something that can assassinate your dreams if left unchecked. He lists common behaviors of chronic procrastinators: constantly putting things off, doing less urgent tasks first just to feel busy, easily getting distracted, only facing things when they become unavoidable crises, always claiming they have no time, waiting for the right mood or the perfect time, and consistently not completing tasks they start. Sound familiar to anyone?
Maybe a little. So what's the solution?
The solution isn't needing to have the entire path figured out before you start. It's about having courage and starting now, even if you start incredibly small. A core strategy is to break down large, seemingly insurmountable goals into smaller, bite-sized, manageable steps, and prioritize these small steps.
And completing those small steps provides that feeling of accomplishment, right? Like you mentioned, releasing dopamine.
Exactly. Meeting those small, achievable goals provides a sense of progress and releases dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter. This creates a positive feedback loop, building confidence and momentum to take further action on the next steps, making the overall goal feel less daunting. He suggests that if you have a large financial goal, like 10,000 pounds, break it down into achieving the first 100 pounds, then the next, and so on. Baby steps.
Okay, so break it down. Are there other specific strategies?
Yes, he provides specific, actionable strategies from the source to combat procrastination. These include intentionally removing distractions and temptations from your environment. Turn off the phone. Using incentives to reward yourself after completing a task. Taking fixed duration breaks to avoid burnout. Using creativity to make tasks more appealing, like listening to music while working. Also, asking for help from others or seeking inspiration guidance when you're stuck. Creating consequences for inaction, like telling a trustworthy friend you'll do something by a certain time for accountability. And publicly announcing your intentions to friends you trust for added accountability pressure. Lots of practical stuff there.
He links this tendency towards procrastination and seeking easy solutions back to what he calls the quick fix society. That resonates.
Yes, he argues that while businesses thrive on saving us time and offering convenience, this has fostered a widespread sense of impatience. We've become conditioned to expect things rapidly, with minimal effort. This societal conditioning makes people more likely to give up easily when their goals don't manifest quickly, leading them to mistakenly assume the goal is out of reach, when often it's simply a lack of sustained effort or patience.
So temper the impatience.
Right. His advice here is tempering that impatience with trust in the process. You'll get the job, the partner, the house, the car, etc. Just don't rush the process, trust it. You have to grow into your dreams. The time it takes is often the time needed for you to develop the necessary skills, character, and mindset to handle and appreciate what you desire. It's part of the journey.
Which implies a necessary trade-off sometimes, swapping short-term pleasure for long-term gain.
Absolutely. While living for the moment is important and part of cultivating good vibes, he stresses that a healthy balance is essential when you have significant goals you're working towards. He uses his own example from his late teens and early 20s, where he would party every weekend, even flying to places like Cancun. He was fully living for the moment, spending significant time and money on temporary leisure, while simultaneously complaining about lacking the resources to pursue his dream of starting his own business.
Wow, the irony.
Right. The insight is that many people fall into this pattern, unwittingly spending their time, energy, and money funding someone else's dreams, like the owners of the entertainment venues or businesses they frequent, while neglecting to invest in their own. It's inherently difficult for humans to delay gratification for future rewards, and an unwillingness to sacrifice temporary pleasures can have massive, limiting implications for achieving long-term goals.
And that, when I have X, I'll be
That
happy.
mindset. He labels that a delusion because external achievements only bring temporary happiness. The alternative he offers is finding genuine pleasure in the present moment through mindfulness and appreciation, regardless of whether your major goals have manifested yet. Ultimately, it's about forming a conscious, healthy balance and being willing to moderate your time and energy investment, sometimes making small sacrifices in the short term for bigger blessings and a more fulfilling life in the long term.
Okay, let's shift gears again. The book also dedicates significant space to relationships, which are absolutely fundamental to our lives. He starts by addressing the difficult topic of navigating toxic people.
Yeah, drawing on the law of vibration again, he suggests that like attracts like, meaning we tend to attract people who are on a similar frequency to us. If you are vibrating higher, you are more likely to attract and be drawn to positive, supportive people. Conversely, constant interaction with toxic or negative people is presented as something that actively drains your energy and lowers your vibration. He says, it is much easier to see the good in life when you are around positive people. Makes intuitive sense, right?
Totally.
He confronts the difficult reality that sometimes, despite biological or historical connections, you simply have to cut out people who continuously cut you down. These individuals are described as venomous, they restrict your progress and make it incredibly hard to function or feel good about yourself, much like a plant struggling to grow in toxic soil conditions.
He lists specific traits from the source material to help identify potentially toxic people. They criticize everything you do, expect too much from you while giving little back, lack respect or support for your goals, ridicule your efforts, neglect your emotional needs, are verbally or emotionally abusive, manipulate situations, and belittle you. Often, he notes, these individuals are unwilling or unable to change.
Their impact is profound. They can suck the goodness out of you, cause you to lose your inner peace, and make you more likely to pass on that pain to others. He poses a challenging question for the listener. Is it selfish to think of ourselves here by distancing? Or is it selfish of them to expect that we should be okay with it? The book clearly sides with the idea that protecting your peace and well-being is necessary, not selfish.
That's a tough call sometimes, though.
Absolutely. Ending toxic relationships, especially with close friends or family, is acknowledged as incredibly difficult and painful. But it is presented as a necessary step for personal introspection, healing, growth, and creating space in your life for more positive and supportive connections.
But before focusing solely on others' toxicity, he strongly urges the listener to look inward first. That's a crucial step.
Absolutely critical. He stresses the importance of checking your own behavior. We are often quick to identify toxicity in others, but rarely turn that critical lens onto ourselves. The most fundamental relationship you have is with yourself, and you must be willing to confront and break free from your own toxic patterns and behaviors that might be hurting yourself or others. This involves honestly identifying your own toxic tendencies.
Does he give examples?
He shares a personal example of realizing he was taking jokes too far with his partner, sometimes reacting defensively or dismissively when she tried to express vulnerability about her feelings. He recognized that making someone feel bad or regretful for opening up to you is deeply harmful. The key, he suggests, is to seek understanding first when someone tells you your behavior has hurt them. Try to identify why they feel hurt rather than immediately becoming defensive, and be willing to learn, grow, and maintain respect for their feelings.
That requires humility.
It does. He also touches on emotional manipulation, taking your own unresolved emotions or insecurities out on someone else, perhaps by questioning their integrity or constantly pointing out their flaws. This behavior is often rooted in your own insecurities or is a reaction to perceived toxicity from them, but it ultimately creates pain and damages the relationship. The quote, "Sometimes you have to break away from the toxicity so you can heal," is relevant here, not just for others' toxicity, but for your own. Healthy relationships, he argues, should be empowering and uplifting, not limiting or making you feel inadequate. He's also very clear that you can't change those who aren't ready to change. Beware of people who might give lip service to wanting to change just to keep you around while their behavior remains the same. Actions speak louder, right?
Definitely.
He emphasizes that you are inherently worth the temporary pain that comes with leaving a toxic situation. Don't settle for relationships that are inadequate or harmful, simply out of fear of being alone or the perceived difficulty of finding someone new. He believes you deserve better.
So how do you know for sure? He offers a method, doesn't he?
Yes, to help identify if you are in a toxic relationship, he offers a very practical and powerful method. Ask yourself what you would advise your daughter or son or someone you deeply loved and cared about to do if they are in your exact situation experiencing the same treatment. He suggests that this thought experiment often reveals your gut feeling or intuition, cutting through the confusion and emotional entanglement to show you what you truly know is right.
That brings us to trusting your gut feeling, or intuition, which comes up explicitly in the book.
Yes, he presents intuition as your soul whispering advice to you. It's described as a sense of knowing something without having a logical reasoning process to back it up. It often feels calm, detached from intense emotion, and can sometimes manifest as a physical sensation, like in your gut. He suggests it's one of the best internal guidance systems available to us, distinct from thoughts driven by fear or desire, which can often mislead. Learning to listen to and trust that quiet inner voice is a key skill, according to the book.
Shifting focus again within relationships. The book makes some very direct points about the importance of choosing your friends wisely.
He highlights the significant influence friends have on how we perceive ourselves. He shares a poignant example of a teenager who genuinely believed she was ugly and stupid because her friends constantly told her that. This illustrates a key point. Many of the negative thoughts and beliefs we hold about ourselves weren't originally ours. They were planted there by throwaway comments, criticisms, and the social programming we receive from those around us.
That's quite chilling, actually.
It is. The suggested action here, though often challenging, is presented as necessary. Sometimes the simplest solution for your own well-being and growth is to consciously choose to be around different people if your existing friends are consistently negative and unwilling to change. When that teenager let go of her toxic friends and built new, supportive connections, her confidence blossomed. The powerful advice is concise. Simplify your circle of friends. Keep those who add value, remove those who don't, and reinforcing the principle of quality over quantity. Less is always more when your less means more.
What about modern friendships? Social media.
Yeah, he reflects on how the definition of friendship has changed in the age of social media, where having hundreds or thousands of friends doesn't necessarily mean you have people you can genuinely turn to in need. He contrasts superficial friendships based on temporary mutual gain, like just going out partying or drinking together, activities which he links to lowering vibration, with more meaningful connections built on emotional support, mutual growth, and a real family-like bond.
So how do you test your friendships?
He offers a test. Do your friends genuinely show support for your goals? Do they applaud your wins, big or small? Do they encourage you to take positive actions towards your dreams? Do they challenge you to grow in a supportive way? If you sense underlying jealousy, resentment, or hatred from your friends when you succeed, he says you are not with the right people. True friends, he argues, sincerely want the best for you. Your success is a shared joy, not a source of envy. He warns against settling for those mediocre friendships where people, as he puts it, some friends want you to do well, but not too well.
Oof, that hits home for some, I bet.
Yeah. He also acknowledges that people grow and evolve at different rates, and sometimes friends stay stuck or resist positive change. This difference in frequencies or life paths can naturally cause separation. He presents this as a normal and acceptable part of life. It's okay, he says, to outgrow people and move on, focusing on your own continued growth. He adds a note of faith, suggesting that if paths are meant to cross again in the future, they will align naturally.
And finally, perhaps the most challenging relationship dynamic to navigate, facing family. Can family members be toxic too, according to the book?
The book is pretty unflinching on this point. He states, you can outgrow clothes, hobbies, jobs, friends, and even family members. He acknowledges the societal pressure and expectation to maintain family ties, but argues that biological relationships do not automatically equate to supportive or healthy ones. He explicitly states that sometimes family members are the most toxic people in our lives, making the decision to distance yourself incredibly difficult, even when they are causing you significant pain.
That's a really hard reality to face.
It is. He encourages trying to understand their intentions, though, noting that often loved ones, particularly parents or older relatives, might have good intentions but are operating from a limited worldview or fears passed down through generations, which manifests as criticism or negativity towards your choices. He uses the example of a friend who wanted to start an online business, only to have his parents ridicule the idea and push him towards a more conventional university path. Their criticism, he suggests, stemmed from their own beliefs, shaped by their experiences and societal conditioning, where an online business wasn't seen as a legitimate or feasible path to success.
So try to see where they're coming from.
Yeah, the crucial perspective offered here is that everyone's perspective, including your own, is limited and subjective. People often fear what they don't understand or what challenges their established beliefs. Making an effort to understand the root of their concerns, whether it's genuine fear for your financial security or discomfort with the unknown, can be helpful in framing your response. Action in this context involves attempting to offer an alternative perspective and gently challenge their limiting beliefs, but accepting that you cannot force them to change or adopt your views. If you desire their support, he advises that you often have to build trust by demonstrating the seriousness and viability of your path. Be open about your feelings and plans. Involve them where appropriate. Show them detailed business plans. Share success stories of others who took similar unconventional paths, or connect your dreams to values or teachings they already hold dear. The goal is to minimize their fear and build their faith in you and your vision.
He includes that powerful quote, if you don't prove that you're serious, you can't expect other people to be serious.
Right. This highlights the need to demonstrate commitment through action before expecting others, especially skeptical family, to fully support you. He suggests leading by example. By pursuing your path with faith and determination, you can show doubters that it is possible to break free from limited thinking. By remaining open-minded, warm, and respectful, even if they treat you unfairly, your faith and determination might, over time, gently inspire change in them by showing them the positive rewards of a different approach to life.
Okay, the book also expands beyond practical habits and relationships to touch on bigger concepts, like faith and connecting to something larger than ourselves, which he frames as connecting to the universe.
Yes, starting with the foundational idea of faith versus fear. He argues that worry and anxiety don't actually improve problems, they just drain your energy and attention. You must be wiser about where you direct your mental and emotional energy. Fear, while a necessary biological mechanism for avoiding physical harm, is often misused in modern life to keep us comfortable and avoid the uncertainty and risk associated with growth and pursuing our potential. It keeps us stuck.
So fear holds us back.
Exactly. He makes a strong statement. You can only step up in the world once you put your anxieties, fears, and worries under your feet. Faith, in this context, is presented not as a passive belief, but as an active choice. The deliberate decision to remain optimistic and hopeful, even when faced with difficulties or when the path forward isn't clear. It requires courage to hang on to it and keep believing, even if that means you're the only one who does.
And how does this active faith connect to letting things unfold? Is it about letting go?
This leads to the idea of flow with the universe. The core message is to embrace good vibes and learn to let things flow. He suggests that there's no need to force outcomes through struggle or excessive control. When you are in harmony with the universe, when you're aligned with your purpose and maintaining a high vibration, what is meant for you will come to you naturally and in its own time. He acknowledges that not every goal will manifest exactly when or how you initially planned, and things often unfold in ways that are ultimately for your highest good, even if they don't look like the original vision at first.
So less forcing, more trusting.
Pretty much. He suggests that trying to force, control, or be rigidly attached to a specific outcome breeds resistance, fear, and doubt, which lowers your vibration. The practice is to let go of that attachment and trust the process. He offers a powerful reframe for setbacks and perceived failures. Rejections are just redirections to better things. Setbacks are seen as pauses or opportunities to alter your plan or perspective, and failures hold valuable lessons. With faith and trust, you can recognize the value in these downfalls, understanding that what you truly want might come to you in different packaging than you expected. It's about balancing taking inspired action with the practice of letting go and allowing things to unfold in their own divine timing.
This naturally brings us to the themes of pain and purpose. How does he connect those?
He references Aristotle's idea that everything happens for a reason. Every experience in your life, even the negative and painful ones, are meant to shape you and help you grow into the person you are meant to become. The challenge he presents is not to fall into the trap of playing the victim. While it's essential to give yourself time to heal from painful experiences, he stresses that you cannot let circumstances or past pain define your future.
The past doesn't have to dictate the future.
Right. He emphasizes that while the past itself cannot change, our perception of the past absolutely can. By consciously shifting to a more positive and empowering perception of past events, you can move from feeling like things happen to you to trusting that things happen for you. He quotes, "Life will test you just before it will bless you," suggesting that painful experiences are often precursors to significant blessings, bringing the necessary wisdom, strength, resilience, and knowledge needed to appreciate and handle the high points that follow. The struggle makes you ready.
And finding purpose, that's a big one for many people.
It is. It's discussed as something many people find difficult or are discouraged from pursuing in favor of more practical paths. He uses the analogy of a soccer ball feeling unfulfilled when used for anything other than being kicked, illustrating that fulfillment comes from aligning with your core purpose.
The core meaning he draws. Life is greater if you live with purpose. Finding a meaningful reason for what you do, something that adds value and resonates with you, is key to feeling complete and truly alive.
He warns against the trap of spending your life in a job or situation you dislike, living only for the weekends or holidays, and essentially wishing time away. He acknowledges that money provides freedom and opportunity, but doesn't equate to purpose or fulfillment. The action he advocates is to find a way to both serve a purpose and meet your financial needs. Purpose doesn't have to be some grand, world-changing endeavor. It's about adding value by doing something you genuinely enjoy and can pour your heart into identifying and following your passion.
He mentions Bashar, too.
Yeah, he includes a brief mention of Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka, who advises simply following your excitement in each moment as the shortest and most direct path to realizing what you truly want and aligning with your purpose. The idea is to just do the next step that feels most exciting to you without needing to logically justify it or see the entire path ahead. Just follow the feeling. The conclusion is that there is indeed a purpose behind your existence, and discovering and living in alignment with it not only has the potential to positively impact the world, but also brings a sense of abundance and fulfillment into your own life.
And bringing it all together, the ultimate question. Does achieving goals and finding purpose guarantee happiness? Or is happiness something else?
The book's final core message circles back to a crucial point. Happiness doesn't come from other people, from places or things. It comes from within. He reinforces the idea that the belief that achieving external goals, finding a partner, buying a house, accumulating money, reaching a certain weight will bring lasting happiness is a widespread delusion.
We all fall for it sometimes, though.
We do. While these things might bring temporary joy or satisfaction, that feeling is fleeting. He points out how advertising and consumer culture often prey on this delusion, promising happiness through purchases and external achievements, creating a perpetual cycle of seeking fulfillment outside ourselves. The true ultimate goal, he suggests, is to reach a state where you can feel happy all the time, or at least consistently maintain a state of inner peace and contentment, regardless of external circumstances. Lasting happiness is presented as true success, maintaining the highest possible emotional frequency, love, joy, peace, despite what is happening in the external world.
How do you achieve that?
This state is achieved through the practice of self-mastery, which he describes as an inward journey of spiritual and personal growth. It involves making conscious, empowering thoughts a consistent habit, intentionally looking for the bright side in situations, actively letting go of the past, consciously appreciating the present moment, withdrawing from detrimental social comparisons, practicing unconditional love, starting with yourself, embracing what is, and making the conscious choice to simply be happy. It's an ongoing practice. The final thought left with the reader is that you already possess everything you need for a great life, and it begins with the practice of self-love. Building and maintaining a high vibration through intentional habits and mindset work is not only a powerful way to attract and achieve your dreams, but just as importantly, it ensures that you feel good along the way, making the journey itself a fulfilling experience regardless of the destination.
Wow. Okay. That was truly a deep dive into Vex King's perspective in Good Vibes, Good Life. We covered quite a journey from the raw reality of overcoming childhood pain to the fascinating concept of how our inner state, our vibration and emotions shapes our reality. We explored the crucial balance of acceptance and action and self-love, the practicalities of navigating sometimes difficult relationships, the pursuit of purpose, and, well, the powerful realization that true, lasting happiness is really an inside job, stemming from within and maintaining that high vibration.
Yeah, the core message, as distilled from the excerpts you shared, is one of empowerment through self responsibility and intentional living. Dedicating yourself to loving yourself, consciously cultivating and maintaining a high emotional vibration, and pairing that with inspired action towards your goals is presented as a path that can lead to incredible positive changes in your life. It's acknowledged that this journey requires time, effort, and sometimes difficult sacrifices, but the author's perspective is clear. It is ultimately worth it for building a life that not only looks good, but maybe more importantly, feels good on a fundamental level.
And that leaves us with something powerful to consider, something that really echoes the themes we've unpacked today. Given the idea that our perception significantly shapes our reality, how might consciously choosing to view a challenge or a perceived setback in your life right now, not as something happening to you, but as maybe a redirection or an opportunity for growth, how might that fundamentally change your experience of it in this very moment?
Or perhaps framed differently, if your emotions are indeed presented as a true reflection of your vibration and what you're attracting into your life. What emotional frequency are you choosing to broadcast most consistently today?
Something to ponder as you go about your day. Thank you for bringing this material to our attention and joining us for this deep dive into Good Vibes, Good Life. We hope you found some valuable insights and perhaps a spark of inspiration to explore further in your own life.